I hope Paul Heyman's okay. Man, the look on his face as the Samoans lifted him. And I mean, the Samoan spike was one thing, but lifting him and dropping him onto that table, and then table collapses and he slides backwards. He is not an athlete. He's a pretty big guy, in his mid 50s, late 50s, something like that. It was quite the scene. I was thinking, Javier, we needed pretty quickly Heyman to break from Solo. Solo's disrespect for him was such that it's sort of like Chad Gable and Otis. I mean, at some point, the growing popularity of Heyman, which who had that on their bingo card, was going to lead to people going from kind of feeling sorry for him to not feeling sorry for him. I thought the timing was right. I mean, Paul Heyman loves Madison Square Garden in New York City. I mean, that's where his heart is. And for this big angle to happen in front of a sellout crowd in the final segment on SmackDown on Fox Broadcast Network, this is, I think, a very big moment for Paul Heyman in his career. I bet this will, I mean, I can't speak for him. I think this will be a top 10 moment, which is really saying something. Maybe he can rattle off 15 that are bigger than this. Who knows? He's had a wonderful career. What do you think of the angle? And do you agree with me that, they kind of needed to do this because of the way Solo was treating Heyman, lying and disrespecting and mocking and all kinds of things?
Yeah, they had to not fast forward, but move forward the storyline. I mean, my thoughts watching it was like when he took the Samoan spike, he went down quick, and I'm like, wow, that was, he sold that well. And then it was the headbutt. I'm like, okay, well, that's a safe, you could do that safely. You're not necessarily, making contact with the person. But when I saw him going for the table, I'm like, man, this guy is giving a lot to the bloodline to get him over. I thought it was good timing with the whole Jacob Fatu. You're right, the straight up leg is he straight up. Oh yeah, Jacob's not here, and then sure enough. But yeah, I thought it was a good moment. I almost halfway, since it was Madison Square Garden, I'm like, is Reigns gonna come out? Is he gonna show for a moment? And my mind was already formulating like how possible, what the possibilities were. And then he took out the, particularly when he took out the necklace, and I think we're meant to assume that they killed Roman Reigns and his body's somewhere.
The way that Heyman reacted when Solo said, "Acknowledge me as your tribal chief," and took out the necklace. I mean, Heyman can cry on demand now. I mean, he can well up with tears and all that, but the slack jaw, gaping jaw, the hand to the face, and then you thought he's going to just do it because he's too scared not to. But he would, I was thinking, okay, he's going to say you're not, and it's Roman Reigns. The other option was you are, but he's going to sob with like a feeling of utter defeat and betrayal of Roman. But what choice do I have? And he took obviously the braver option, because after he said it, he knew he was going to get Samoan spiked. Solo's right there. I don't think his character knew he was going to get splashed by Jacob Fatu and then driven through an announce desk, but he knew he'd have something coming his way.
No, he knew he was going to get killed. Because that's why he was trying to blunt what was coming by telling him, I love you. That this is, and also kind of understanding that it was going to happen, because his loyalty was to one person and not, and I do think it had to have happened, because after he told CM Punk, "Will take me with you," and he already played that card, then Solo would look weak had he not taken this, this moment when he, basically giving him the final chance. And I love the fact that he already knew it was coming, because he wasn't shaven, he was all disheveled. Seemed like he had been, he either doused his eyes with something in the back because they were bloodshot when he was out there.
Yeah.
Great moment. And like I said, the most impressive thing is, when you're not a bump taker and you take that kind of bump, that, it's designed to be as safe as humanly possible, but he's not a wrestler. And like you said, all the other stuff. But yeah, that was definitely a memorable way to sign off.
So when does Roman have to show up for it to not reflect poorly on him to not be there for Paul Heyman?
It depends on how they explain his him, not being around. that's that there needs to be an explanation ultimately, and then
Right.
and then at that point we can actually see, maybe he went on a walkabout and he's unreachable, trying to get himself together, or maybe he got kidnapped and he's like in a in a cell somewhere, and it has to get out. If he's just like living his life as usual and doing stuff that and not really paying attention to things, that it hurts him if he's coming back as a babyface, because it's like you need to repay that loyalty, and that's what the story's setting up. So you would think that that's that they're going to have a good explanation, but we'll see.
How do you feel about this Bloodline 2.0, as we're just informally calling it? Is this is it getting? My take is, I'll just say, I think it's getting better all the time. And I think it's probably going to silence some critics who are thinking, this is some derivative rehash. They're taking it. They're going a season too long, so to speak, for a good series. But and I think Solo's been good. I know there's some people who don't. I don't think he's been great. Paul Heyman's great. Roman Reigns in his way was great. Sami Zayn and Jey Uso's interaction was great. Solo's not at that level, but I think he's absolutely passing the bar as just this kind of heartless, mean, disrespectful person who's trying to fill a power vacuum in the absence of Roman in just a ruthless way, and then obviously bringing in people who they're telling the story and framing is a group of people who even Reigns wouldn't want to associate with. So I just think there's a lot of logic and backstory to this that shows, as is not surprising with something Paul Heyman's involved in, a lot of thought and meticulous planning. Javier, what do you think?
Solo. I don't. The thing about Solo, he's not the final boss. See what I did there? So he is. You're not meant. I don't think he necessarily. I think he's doing a good job for what he's doing. I think that he is. He's not also. He's working the role that he's working. So I think he's doing good for that. For that, and plus, like I said, he's not really the final boss. Once the story's over, that would be where I'm be more concerned. Like, once everything's done, where does he go from here? Because he's being buoyed up by the actual story more than anything else. But I thought this was an important moment. This would be, punching Tony Schiavone if you're in AEW. That's the kick the dog moment. This kind of was that for him, where it's like, okay, there's really no coming back from that. And I know that some of like the Solo sucks and stuff like that, and we want Roman kind of things is like kind of negative heat. But eventually, a lot of times, if you have a good story and you maintain with a good story, it ends up people end up liking them. Look at Dominic. Dominic at first was it was like, oh, he's Nepo baby, and he's getting this opportunity he doesn't deserve, and now look, he's what he has done over on Raw. So I think that lane exists for Solo. It takes time though. Back in the day, you would get if you weren't immediately good, you got sidetracked if Vince lost faith in you. But this is going to be a longer term storyline, so I'm patient, and I'm going to see where this goes up. And he's, like I said, he's done a good job, and there's room there to improve. But he's carrying his part of the load.
So Jacob Fatu, Solo lies to Paul Heyman, or told the truth but in a deceptive way. Like, he's not here now, but he showed up. I can't remember his exact wording, but and then, I mean, a serious sign of disrespect to Heyman, interrupting Heyman's opening, and then doing a whole ring entrance for Jacob Fatu. I think he's carried himself very well. I mean, I think Bloodline 2.0 needed somebody at his level of threat. And, some of the hype for this incarnation, Tonga Loa and Jacob Fatu, it's a little heavy-handed, a little over the top in terms of how dangerous. I mean, I think Barrett said, after 1 week, Jacob Fatu is. Do you remember the phrase he used? I'll look it up here if you don't, because it was. He said he is the most lawless, volatile individual in the history of the industry, and I don't know that we're quite there yet. I mean, I'd rather have Barrett be a little softer and go, I have heard so many things about him. And from what we've seen so far, I fear that he is going to prove to be the most lawless, volatile wrestler in his. I mean, show us before you tell us. So if I have a critique, there's that. But I get what they're trying to do, and I know they feel they have a hard act to follow, and they want to build this heel now foursome up. But it's been quite the ride, and I mean, like I said, I like so much of what they're doing at this point with it.
Yeah, for my liking, I personally like that the first part of the storyline, because you had mentioned kind of like multiple seasons, or you could see this is more of a sequel than a continuation is really what more it feels like, because there's a hard break when Cody wins the title, and now we're building up what would be the sequel, and I like the idea that you're playing with the idea that Roman Reigns wasn't really chaotic. He always felt like he had a plan in mind, and in the way that direction things were going. So, and now you're introducing this new character who's opposite, and the people around him are also, the opposite. They're chaotic. They're you don't know whether they're going to zig or zag. And I think that, that juxtaposition between the two different versions of the bloodline, I think is, now the previous bloodline, it's like, well, I preferred them. I know they were heels, but I prefer them because at least I knew they weren't going to murder me in my sleep. So that was kind of the, so I dig that. That's a good way to go into a second season where it's a familiar threat, but different enough. And then you set up for the third part, which would be the eventual, colliding of the two different factions. And that's, I mean, granted, now I'm looking forward to what's going to be happening like probably a year from now. But it's and it's important to enjoy the ride. And so far with the first storyline, even though we knew as of the WrestleMania the WrestleMania that Cody lost, that he was for sure going to win it on the next one, it still worked because you didn't do any crazy swerves, to change the story. They tried with the whole Rock thing, and you saw how that went. And then when they stayed the course that they had already charted, and the same thing with this. It's going to be fun when we finally see what happens. Just, I'm going to just enjoy the ride, while we're on, because so far the people who've been, in charge of this have been, they haven't disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, to have a New York MSG crowd in the palm of the hands of everybody involved, Paul Levesque, the writers, Paul Heyman, chanting for Roman Reigns. I mean, this is, a bit of vindication after, however many years we were saying Roman needs to have a run as a heel before he'll be popular as a babyface. He just had to go through that. But obviously a lot of this is the specific choices they've made with him, not just, generically turning him heel and then turning him face. He's a very different babyface. He's been on a very different journey, but it's one that feels much more authentic now to who he is. With a touching tribute video to his now late father on the show, and some childhood and younger pictures of Roman. Further, putting him in a position of being a sympathetic babyface. I don't know how much money he's made and how much money he's drawn or how many years he has left, but when he comes back and he and Heyman are a babyface duo, which I feel like is the only way to go now. I mean, I don't think we should be sitting here thinking seriously that they would consider having Heyman turn heel after what we saw tonight and turn on Roman. But I mean, I trust them if they have a plan to do that, that, they can try to pull it off. But Roman and Heyman are going to be an amazing babyface act and draw a lot of money. And then the question is just, can they line up heels beyond this Bloodline 2.0 group, Solo and Jacob Fatu being, the top two at this point of threats to him, and Rock, and maybe someday a heel Cody. I mean, does Heyman turn on Roman 2 years from now or 3 years from now and side with Cody as a heel act, or Punk? I mean, they're going to have to get creative because Roman's mega over. I didn't have on my bingo card for 2024 8 months ago, 8 months ago, that fans would be chanting, "We want Roman," and Heyman would be the biggest babyface at MSG. But between the Hall of Fame speech and ECW nostalgia, but mostly the Bloodline 2.0 storyline, they pulled it off. So let's actually pause and introduce ourselves formally here. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Friday, June 28th, 2024. I am Wade Keller, host of the show, the editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter. The latest copy is here. Headline: AW Dynamite. AW Dynamite draws record low viewership, and then a exclusive cover story on that, and then also Sean Radican going, which AW wrestlers would benefit from a stint in New Japan. And Greg Parks, if we go to his usual spot on page 10, has a column looking at his live NXT house show experience. A lot more in this newsletter. You can subscribe and look forward to going to your mailbox, pwtorch.com/papercopy, or get a PDF and all text version of the newsletter with a VIP membership. The way to become a VIP member is to go to pwtorch.com/govip. The graphics on the screen for our YouTube viewers, pwtorch.com/govip. Whole array of VIP exclusive podcasts and also ad-free versions of our free shows. And then 35 plus years of archives, a fascinating walk through my reporting and the whole team's reporting and commentary throughout the late 80s through today. Hundreds of retro radio shows from the 90s. Our podcast going back more than 20 years now. Our current VIP feed features 18 years ago podcasts almost every day, sometimes more than one a day, looking back at what was going on in 2006 with this style of coverage. But back then, it was a very weird vengeance card back in 2006 that we're getting into now. If you look that lineup up, we're about to post our roundtable reviews of that, our podcast review of that, the night of the event. So I encourage all of you to go VIP. We'd love to have you as a VIP member. That's the best way to support what we do. Although just being here and watching our show is helpful. As everybody, all the content creators, hosts, I'll say, it is helpful if you subscribe to this. And also if you like this show, that's helpful. And if you had any comments afterwards, that's helpful too. And I keep an eye on comments and respond to many of them on a daily basis. So go ahead and do that. Those are other ways to support us. Super chats are nice. If you're watching us live and want to guarantee your comment gets on the air, if it is appropriate for the show, we appreciate super chat gestures too. And also subscribe to our main podcast. And today, Eric Kroll and I spent an hour and a half previewing AEW's pay-per-view on Sunday, Forbidden Door. Eric was great on this show. And that is not going to be on YouTube. It's on our Blue Logo show, this is our Red Logo show, the Wade Keller post shows. Our Blue Logo show is podcast only. And so you need to search Wade Keller in your podcast app and subscribe to both the Red Logo show to get everything we do on our podcast feed, which is more than what we do here on YouTube. And then also the Blue Logo show. The flagship went up earlier in the week. That's still available, of course, on the feed, covering a lot of AEW and WWE topics. And but the preview show over on our Blue Logo show of Forbidden Door also includes the full Tony Khan media Q&A from yesterday. So again, search Wade Keller and subscribe to that podcast. That is another way to support us. And then finally, just check out our website every day, pwtorch.com. Let's now just give a shout out to any of our VIP members and Patreon supporters who want to get in the waiting room and be a video caller or audio caller tonight. The way to do that is to go to pwtorchvip.com, click on My Smackdown Report tonight, and this applies to Ron Dynamite too, and look for the code. There's a code you can click on. That'll get you into the waiting room as in the queue to be a video caller or audio caller. You can turn off your camera if you'd prefer. It's fine either way. And also, if you're a Patreon supporter, we posted that during this show. So you can find the code there, and we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to see you, and you can join the conversation. You can also join us if you're live streaming the show on YouTube in the chat room, and you can also email us at wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. That's wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. Javier, there is another podcast feed that we push, which is the PWTorch Daily Cast. And you are now moving into one of the shows there, replacing one of the hosts, Charlie Kate, who is due to some other obligations, moving away from that show. And so you and Kevin Duncan are going to be part of the Acknowledging WWE weekly PWTorch Daily Cast. I know Kevin is excited about it. You did one show with him, and I'm excited to hear you guys every week talk WWE.
Yeah, you can check it out this week too, where I joined Charlie on that. Yeah. So
what'd you do?
I think I broke him.
Yes. He's like, I can't do this anymore. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to be taking over for him. So I'll be doing that as much as I can. So.
Yeah, and there'll be substitute hosts when you can't, and I know Kevin missed this week too. So, but we hope the show
if Wade twisted my arm anymore, snap off.
I just asked nicely, and you said yes. I don't. No, seriously, I think you guys are great together, and I look forward to hearing you most weeks. Talk WWE. I know Kevin is real excited. He enjoyed the show he did with you. So
if it goes anything like the first one that we did together, I think we are going to be capturing the spirit of the Sochek and McMahon podcast, where they barely ever talked about TNA or AEW. It was just everything else in the world.
No, you'll be talking. Trust me, you'll be talking WWE. I know you will. But I mean, that's the fun part about podcasts is when the two people just enjoy talking with each other, and it goes another time. And Charlie and Kevin did that too. They were the WWE wrestling dads, and they talked about that stuff, and they had a good chemistry. But you and Kevin do too, and I look forward to seeing that blossom. All right. We do a lot, and so I and we're new here on YouTube, so I want to get those plugs in, and I know I get emails and questions on how do I participate in the show and all that. So I think we checked the boxes we needed to there. So now we will shift back to talking about an eventful episode of SmackDown. We had some NBA star involvement at MSG. Logan Paul getting pinned at MSG, which I loved. It's just he's got the clout to go. I don't think I should do that, and I mean I think, and I doubt he did, and it worked. So we'll get into that too. But let's jump into our queue here and bring some callers on. And I want to start with a first time caller here, Lee. If you are ready for us, we are ready for you. So I'm going to add you to the show in 3 seconds here, and you can leave your camera off or turn your camera on. Either way works. Lee, welcome to the show. What's on your mind about SmackDown tonight?
Just one thing, and I called a week ago or so, talking about Raw and not having watched in a long time and noticing the difference. And what I noticed today, what I noticed today, and what I think I slipped by me before, is basically how well they are. The SmackDown and Raw now lead the audience in getting the reaction they want. I'm just so impressed with them leading the story, them getting the reaction they want, and you can really feel it. Like that last, the last segment was just, I mean, they had the crowd cheering exactly how they wanted, the crowd to cheer. And I'm just going to reiterate what I said the other day is I'm just so impressed with the product now that it's just crazy to me.
So are you? What's your commitment to watching this version of WWE?
Every week it's growing. It's tough because it's a lot of hours, a lot of commitment outside of even that you got to consume all the media to really stay up on it. But it's growing. I mean, I'm checking in on it more and more throughout the week. I am watching segments to an hour or so at a time, and I'm getting more and more involved in it. And I'm honestly just so excited about it. It's so cool to see.
I mean, they touted during the show, Javier, the string of TV sellouts, 37 TV sellouts, I think this year out of about 52, halfway into the year here, and 40 some sellouts or 50 some sellouts overall. They are not being shy about talking about how truly hot and popular this product is right now. JB in the chat said it's wild. They had 18,000 plus at MSG with high ticket prices for a 2-hour SmackDown. I suspect they're giving something extra to those fans before and after. They want to treat New York well, but I mean, it is something, the popularity of this product right now. I mean, it's a different measurement system than it was 25, 30 years ago. But I mean, this is feeling Attitude Era boom period, like in terms of the enthusiasm of the crowds and how full the buildings are and how over the wrestlers are. And really, I think one of the keys when wrestling is hot, Javier, is when it seems like the wrestling promotion and wrestlers are just in sync with the fans, and the fans are in sync with them. And we're just seeing that. We're not seeing protest chants at this point. It's remarkable.
Yeah. What you said. Can't add more to that, but yeah, it with the exception maybe I don't know if you guys saw because I'm watching a different feed. So I fortunately, because I was reading the comments, I didn't get the bleeping that Fox did. Apparently that was an issue. That detracted from a lot of people. I don't know. There was a commercial with Triple H coming out and saying, if you haven't you heard, I'm going to paraphrase horribly. Are you dead? You haven't heard? WWE is, he didn't say yeah we're back, but yeah, he pretty much said we're back and we're hot. And it had the attitude of some of those commercials you saw during the Attitude Era. That was like, hey, we're hot. It's time to check us out. So yeah, I think it's a good time, and considering the fact that lately they've had a lot of star power missing for one reason or the other, the fact that you still get away with that is still impressive.
Yeah, very good. Lee, anything else you want to add?
No, that's just what I want to say. Thanks.
Cool, great, good hearing from you. All right, we'll go to Ken Arnold next. Ken, another audio-only caller. Welcome to the show. Ken, what's on your mind about SmackDown tonight?
Well, how you guys doing tonight?
Doing good. How you doing?
Good. I made sure to mute my TV this time so there's no background noise like last
That's
week.
great. Yeah.
But yeah, I'll try to keep it relatively short. But yeah, I thought this was a really good SmackDown. I mean, yeah, they're in New York. They're in Madison Square Garden, so it's not a surprise that they're going to make sure to put on a great show. But last week was the night of the heels. This week was kind of sort of the baby faces striking back a little bit for the most part. LA Knight getting his revenge. I mean, Cody and KO and Randy Orton getting their revenge a little bit. You kind of saw that. So, but I thought overall, outside of the three-way with Indy Hartwell and Blair Davenport and Naomi, which was just an absolute mess. I mean, that was, I feel sorry for all three of them. Naomi she has experience, but it didn't seem like she could carry those two at all. It's almost like, yeah, they got her the win, so she'll be in the briefcase match, but you're just like, man, that was hard to watch. I mean, but outside of that being kind of the downer, I mean, the Paul Heyman was tremendous tonight again. And, he's going to be gone for a while, obviously, to sell the beatdown. But I just love the moment when I honestly thought he was actually going to acknowledge Solo for like a minute there. And he didn't do it. And I thought that was really well done when he said, I'm not, I don't know the exact word, but he didn't acknowledge him. And that was great. And Paul Heyman's not the greatest bump taker in the world, but he did pretty well for the most part.
He is not the greatest bump taker.
No.
That's for sure.
I mean,
yeah, he looked legitimately nervous, and he should be. He is a below average athlete, to put it mildly. But he was in good hands, literally.
Yeah. I mean, you could tell they were being very careful when they were going to do the triple power bomb spot with him because he is pretty heavy. He's always been that way. So they're like, you could see his eyes open, like, okay, here we go. This is it.
Yeah. Genuinely nervous. Yeah.
Yeah. And the referees made sure, okay, we got to make sure nothing happens here because he's the most important part of this whole storyline or everything that they do. So, but yeah, it was a great night. I mean, I am so curious as to what's going to happen when Paul comes back and he announces Roman Reigns is coming back, the reaction that's going to get. And when they, and I think Roman Reigns is going to be the hottest baby face that we've, that's going to overshadow Cody and everybody else. And it's just, I don't think they wanted it. It's just how it's going to work out. And it's like, I feel bad for Cody in the sense that his title reign is going to be kind of overshadowed by that and I feel like, I'm trying to think what else is there. I mean, it's fun to watch how everything's going to play out with everybody involved in this story. So, and I'll pause for a second because I'm losing. I'm thinking a mile a minute on all these things. So I apologize for that.
No, that's okay. So I'll put you on hold and throw to Javier for a minute. The Naomi match with Indy and Davenport. Talk about what you saw there.
Yeah, it seemed that they had too many fancy spots that they weren't up for. The sloppiness was mostly on the three-way on those three-way complicated spots. Also sloppiness on the referees too. On the referee too, where she didn't count the. There's a point where B Priestley oh god, what's her WWE name? Davenport was on Indy Hartwell, and she was draped over her, but they were setting up for I think a moonsault from Naomi, and there should have been a count there, but there wasn't. A lot of moves that were like very sloppy. There was one where the second moonsault that Naomi went for almost looked like she was about to land on her head. And barely cleared. So
she headbutted Davenport, and then Davenport had to no-sell it because it wasn't the plan, because she had to continue on offense.
Yeah, so it was, it was definitely issues with it. It was they try to do something above their actual level is what it felt like. And I think that hurt the match. When the early parts of it were fine, it was just mainly that once they tried to go the fast pace, hit two guys, hit two guys, with one person, that sort of stuff, that got messy.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'll throw back to Ken and just see. Ken, are you ready with any other thoughts? Anything else you want to
add? Yeah, I thought I was really, when Jalen Brunson showed up, that was pretty cool. And then when Logan Paul brought out Tyrese Halliburton, and he got such great heat from New York. I mean, it's not a surprise given the Indiana Pacers and New York Knicks history. Mm-hmm. That was really good. I mean, Tyrese clearly played into it really well. And as everyone was pointing out, Jalen and those two clearly enjoyed it. They were really having fun. I mean, I imagine that Adam Silver and the Knicks front office and the Pacers front office were a little nervous, but I mean, they knew that, they're not going to get physical, but it was good.
Yeah, it's safer than Andrew Wiggins playing in the Olympics, but I mean, NBA teams are sometimes very cautious, and understandably so. But they were pretty careful.
Yeah, I thought the brass knuckles part was cool, and then Jalen Brunson bringing out the steel chair. Obviously, they weren't going to do anything, but it was pretty cool. And LA Knight, no surprise, he was really over with the New York crowd. That's good because New York. Because when Vince McMahon was running things, he always used the Garden as kind of his barometer as to where he thought.
Oh yeah,
he always did, and I feel like Paul Levesque to an extent is doing that too a little bit. I mean, even though Chicago's kind of more their place where they want to see if is this person really as over as we think, or are they really? But I think they're on a roll right now. I mean, I'm looking. It's Money in the Bank is looking pretty good. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many different options to who might win, and I like the fact that they're mixing in a lot of the newcomers from NXT with a lot of some of the wrestlers who haven't really been featured as prominently, so that adds a lot, that freshens things up a lot more. And it's like 6 people and not like 8 or 9. Like it just makes it a little bit easier to follow next Saturday night. So yeah, I'm really like, I think the Cody's promo and KO and Orton's promo was really good. That was really fiery. What you wanted after they got beaten down last week. They needed that. And it's like, they don't do the Garden as much anymore for a lot of reasons. But right. I mean, because I think Jim Ross said years ago they just stopped doing it because they were losing money all the time. But when they go back,
not
it's
anymore.
Like, man, yeah, that was really fun. So next week's gonna be fun. They're in Toronto, another one of their big cities and buildings they go to, so that's going to be a wild crowd. But yeah, this is a fun time. I mentioned this months ago after WrestleMania, but this is such a fun time to be a wrestling fan. And if you fell off or you haven't watched in a while, I mean, you're right. It does feel a little bit like the Attitude Era when things really got hot, the era that got me into it as a fan. And it's like, everything's just clicking right now. And I feel like we need to enjoy this as much as possible, because who knows how long this will last. It may end next year or 2 years from now. Who knows?
Yeah.
So, and that's pretty much it. That's all I got this week.
Good. Great hearing from you, Ken. Love hearing from all our VIP members and Patreon supporters. Well, let's just keep rolling. We got Sean from Tennessee and Rude Dog. Whoever raises their hand first gets to go first. Rude Dog wants in. All right, here we go. Rude Dog, welcome. Hello. I loved your hand just shot up so fast. That was funny. Sean is smiling in the background, by the way. Sorry, go ahead, Rude Dog.
Well, thank you, Sean. Sorry I skipped the line or whatever, and hey, Javier, it's nice to talk to you. You're one of my favorite contributors.
Thanks.
And And maybe we can get a GoFundMe to get you a $30 ring light so you don't look like you're in an underground bunker.
I actually have a light on the camera. It's just not very good.
Javier and I had a chat about that before the show. He's like, he's in the darkest room, but that's where his computer is. So
yeah.
All right. Well, that's a rare perk that I'm not sure you even know, Wade. If you log into the VIP waiting area beforehand, we get to see your little production meter before.
Oh, you get to actually see us talk?
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Which is actually pretty funny. So
yeah, well, the secret's out now. Now I got to really watch what I say. No, I figured if you guys were in the waiting room, you could see once we go live on screen before hitting the live button. You get to hear me fret over whether I'm got all the settings right before we hit go live.
Well, my favorite was last week, a certain person you told not to smoke or vape on camera.
Yes. Yeah.
But anyways.
I don't know what the YouTube rules are for that. So I was like, just let's not,
No, it's good to not do that.
Yeah.
On camera. But anyways.
We're about to hit 666 live viewers through Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. There it is, 666. So just
a little maybe Walter wins.
It's now we're at 667, so we're good. So what? By the way, everybody who's watching us outside of YouTube, if you aren't able to be in the chat room, just go to youtube.com/PWTorch if you want to just settle in for the rest of the show, because that'll give you full access to everything that we're doing. I mean, it's great you're watching us through other places, and if you're comfortable there, of course, just do that. But I want to throw that out there that if you keep hearing us talking about the chat room and you're like, how do I get in on that? It's the easiest way to do that is by going to the YouTube feed. Go ahead, Redux.
All right. Well, my first point, you kind of mentioned it, but I wanted to go a little more into detail. Like, I'm a huge NBA fan, so seeing Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton was pretty cool, even though they might not be household names but they are NBA All-Stars and they're like on the All-NBA team.
They had a big series big playoff matchup this year, so a lot of people got introduced to them who didn't know them.
But yeah, they definitely had, because of the Knicks and Pacers Eastern Conference semifinals. But it did make me feel like back in the Attitude Era when celebrities and all-star athletes just wanted to be a part of the product because it was hot. And do you think having star athletes involved in matches is a good thing, or just a lame attempt to get on SportsCenter?
I thought this worked. The part that doesn't work is that Halliburton, WWE just made this big deal out of going to Indianapolis, their deal with Indianapolis. And now you got Halliburton siding with Logan Paul, who's just, this scumbag heel. And so it's very, it's very local. The downside is it feels like something that should be, happen after SmackDown, just in MSG for the local audience, instead of something that everybody sees, including people in Indiana who are like, wait a second. I like, I want to be supportive of my hometown hero, but I don't like him associating with Logan Paul or even, being a co-conspirator and using brass knuckles. So there's that downside, but I think it's overridden more than, WWE is bigger than SportsCenter. But from a pure social media standpoint, collectively all the attention they're going to get, I think it's a no-brainer to do it at this level when it involves the star New York Knicks player, not a fringe guy, and a star Indiana Pacer. So yeah, I think I'm on board. Javier, how do you feel?
Yeah, sometimes you have to just go with the rule of cool, and it worked. It worked in this case. I agree with you in terms that you want to also have high people. I personally don't know who they are because I'm not. I'm more like both commentators who flat out said, "I have no idea who these people are. I don't know what's going on." But hey, particularly Wade Barrett. But I just figuring out that they did enough to explain it, saying we're going to get a game 8. I found that cute. But yeah, it kind of feels like it should be like the just for the hometown crowd kind of situation. But I think in this case, I think people who are into the series are probably going to like, oh yeah, now we're going to get revenge, or if you're on one side or the other. But yeah, but the association with Logan Paul, you do run into that issue. It's like, well, why is he with him? Because the same thing happened. Who was it happened with recently? Patrick Mahomes. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes. Why is Patrick Mahomes hanging out with hanging out with Logan Paul?
And they did it in Kansas City, right? In his home market. Yeah.
So but I mean, it was fun. Plus, the fact that you're getting the way the crowd just went nuts. With those in those moments, it elevated. It made the product feel really hot.
Four Eyes Malone in the chat says, as a Pacers fan, seeing Halliburton and Brunson go at it was great. LOL, especially since they're good friends in real life. And they did look like they're having fun. They struck the right tone. The only conflict is just the notion that, Halliburton is siding with Logan just because they're at MSG. And, sometimes it would have been kind of fun if, they still want to play up the Pacer-Knicks rivalry, but it would have been kind of fun if Logan, upset Halliburton and he just turned on him, in the course of things. But anyway, it was fine. And Rude Dog, I think within on occasion, with a big enough star and a big enough setting, I think it's worth doing. And I think they pulled it off tonight.
Yeah, it's also interesting, because there's going to be all these Indiana shows coming up, and which I'm not even sure when they're all like happening, but I wonder if Tyrese Halliburton's going to be a part of all of them or most of them. Like, it almost looked like his shirt was like a WWE made shirt with his Tyrese 317 shirt, which I'm not quite sure. Obviously it's a takeoff of Steve Austin, but so I wonder if he's going to be, working with them for a while.
Azan, by the way, points out that Tyler was on Raw this week with Logan on FaceTime. So they planted the seed for this, but it doesn't change the fact that he's being a heel and they're cozying up. He's cozying up to a heel, even though Indianapolis is supposed to be a babyface city for WWE right now. Again, not a big deal. Four Eyes Malone says Tyrese and Brunson both got WWE official shirts for whatever that's worth.
Ah, nice. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Ken Arnold said, I thought Tyrese would clock Logan with brass knuckles and then he and Jalen would embrace. So yeah, I think that would have been more satisfying, unless again you want to keep up the Knicks Pacer rivalry intensity, even if kayfabe they're really friends. Rude Dog, what else?
All right, so with the Money in the Bank matches so far, to me, they seem a little light on star power. I always thought like Money in the Bank was best to have some established stars mixed with some emerging stars. And this looks a little light on the like major stars. What do you think of the Money in the Bank competitors so far?
Yeah, Javier, we've seen the underdogs winning. The women's Money in the Bank features Io Sky, relatively big name. Chelsea Green, a big enough name, not somebody you take seriously as like a top person, but a personality that people are into, and I wouldn't rule her out winning. Lyra Valkyria, who's getting a push. Tiffany Stratton getting a big push. Naomi, a veteran who's been around a while, and she's not going to win. And then another one to be determined on Monday. On the men's side, Andrade, Chad Gable, Carmelo Hayes, Jey Uso, LA Knight. I think that's pretty good, but it is, Rudog, you're right. It's not top people. This under Paul Levesque this year, it's more like, kind of the old King of the Ring tournaments in the 90s, where it's got some top guys, but you're not going to see a world championship level person, but the person who might be in the world championship match a year or two later. Generally speaking, that the idea was it's a future stars tournament in a way. There were top people in it, but not top people. This is a level down even from that. Javier, what do you think of this approach?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about who was. Yeah, it just seemed like it's not. It almost feels like one of them is just going to be kind of like a joke champion, because I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea Green comes out with it,
which is good. That's a fun story to tell.
Yeah, and then like someone like Jey Uso win just because whatever's going to happen there. You have more that you could play with the champions there. With the men's champion, you can play more over on Raw, while the women's champion, you'll probably be able to play more on SmackDown. Because I don't think with Liv Morgan, Liv Morgan is destined for Rhea Ripley at whatever point that happens. So yeah, it does seem like, yeah, Jey Uso, maybe Drew, because we still need one more person there. Although my money's on Dragunov. And that was kind of like this. That was one of the things that kind of some of these matches felt kind of repetitive, where like the person that you kind of expect would win would then hit their finisher, and then the pin would get stolen. That happened a couple of times. Or somebody, like today when Indy took out Jade, and then that's why Stratton was able to win. So you had a couple of those. So it definitely feels like they wrote up a lot of ways for the person you would that deserves the shot, not getting it because they got screwed by somebody else in the match. And I think that does end with like, okay. But I think the other part of this is, I think this is an opportunity to see where some of these people are. Tiffany Stratton and Lyra Valkyria, how are they going to be featured in that match? Like I said, Ilya Dragunov, to see how he's featured, to prep the audience for what they're going to be doing, coming down the road, and expect and see if they're people that could be challenging for the actual championship. So I'm looking. That's my eyes. Like when the matches happen, my eyes are going to be on Lyra Valkyria, Tiffany Stratton, Carmelo Hayes, and what they do with them in that match, in the matches.
Yeah, I honestly, Rude Dog, think there's, as we're talking about it here, I'm looking at it and looking at the comments in the chat room too. I mean, there's some people who just you don't think are going to win. Naomi immediately comes to mind, but I think you can make a case, not a great case, but a case for Lyra Valkyria. Sky seems like probably not. It wouldn't do a lot for her. It wasted a bit, but Chelsea Green and Tiffany Stratton would be the top two contenders with very different reasons. Both can get a win. Thumbs up from Rude Dog there. On the men's side, I mean, the early pick early choice with a lot of people was Jey Uso. That would get him back into the top tier mix. Andrade, I think they want to try to convince you they might give him that win. I don't think they will. Chad Gable's intriguing, with what's going on with the Wyatt Six, which I don't think got mentioned tonight at all on SmackDown. But he, he's got something going on, so maybe the Money in the Bank factors in, but you kind of have to, it's a stretch to make a case for that now. LA Knight, they could. I don't think he needs it, and I think they see him in a different role. So, I mean, I guess Carmelo Hayes or else whoever fills that last spot. If it's Drew, it makes storyline sense. It's a different kind of story than Carmelo Hayes or, say, Andrade or even Chad winning. But I don't know. I mean, I think you can make a case for a handful of them, Root Dog, but whoever wins, they obviously have a story in mind that's very, intentional and well planned. So it's going to tell us a lot. If Carmelo Hayes wins, that says we think we're getting behind this guy. We're not just giving him, backstage skits to be an agitator who loses. We actually want to do something with him. But then I think that limits Chelsea Green's chances of winning, because I think they don't want to sort of not underdog, but agitating mid-card heels winning. And that's kind of where Carmelo is at this point. Rude Dog, back to
you. Yeah. I mean, I pretty much agree with you. Like, if I had to bet, it would be Jey Uso and either Stratton or Chelsea Green to win, and both of them would be fun to have them. But anyways, so the last thing, you have touched on it, but taking it in a little different direction. So do you think the bloodline is too watered down now? I mean, Jacob Fatu, Tongaloa, Tama Tonga, they're all wrestlers I've watched for years, but to the casual WWE fans, they have to be like, who are these guys? I mean, a lot of people complain about AEW just throwing in these international indie wrestlers on TV with little to no introduction. And I feel like WWE is doing the same thing. How do you feel WWE is introducing the new bloodline? That's it.
So, yeah, great question. Copyright Tony Khan. I think that I want to know more about Tonga Loa and Tama Tonga. I mean, I want more differentiation between them. I think it's smart to introduce them separately and give them each, with a week or two or so in between, a moment to debut. And so I think that's a positive in terms of how they've been portraying them. I think Jacob Fatu, they've done a good job right away differentiating him as, the unhinged, violent killer of the group. And they're signaling to the fans, Javier, he's the one to worry about. Now, whether that's to worry about because he's going to be at ringside and attacking people, or the guy who's going to be in main events against top baby faces, that's still to be shown to the mainstream fans. But what do you think of Rude Dog bringing up that AEW doesn't get a free pass, and this might be an instance of WWE getting a free pass in terms of bringing people in? I'll just frame it this way. I don't think WWE, there's anything about the way the Bloodline Samoans who have been added, there's nothing about the way that they're being booked and presented that requires or even asks you to have prior knowledge of who they are other than part of the Samoan family. And I think in AEW, they're presenting them with a framework that says most people watching us know who they are, but if you're one of the people who doesn't, Excalibur will give you a 12-second summary on their way to the ring, and you need to do some research and catch up and be one of the cool fans who watches more than just, what's on US cable. I think there's a tone difference there. But what do you think, Javier? Am I giving WWE too much credit or a free pass here?
Not a free pass, not too much credit, because they've been introduced basically in terms of like they're just thugs that were hired by or brought on by Solo, and that's their role, because you understand what their role is. Their role are going to be fierce muscles for this guy, so you. At least going into what you're watching, you know what they're doing, which is kind of the, because that's kind of like the difference. Because they're not at this moment individuals. The Usos weren't individuals. Remember, it wasn't until Jay became main event Jay, and they actually started exploring that. And Usos have been around forever. So that's the way that's where the former Guerrillas of Destiny, Tama Tonga and Tangaloa, that's where that's where they're at. They gave more to Tama Tonga. They gave nothing to Tangaloa in terms of any character development, because you got to see Tama Tonga, that he was his fierceness and how he acted around everyone, where he was like a slightly, like how he's slightly unhinged. And then you introduce Jacob Fatu, and and here's the important thing: Jacob Fatu is the enforcer for the guy that used to be the enforcer. So so that's like exponential. He's like an exponential Solo. So when Solo was introduced, it's like, okay, here's the dangerous guy who's going to hit the Samoan Spike. Now, what does that mean for Jacob Fatu? Yeah, you don't know, his history in MLW and his history, going in and stuff like that. But they did that part of it where what his role is and what he's going to be going for. Now, if they're going to expand on who they are, you could then do that in those, because how did they expand the Usos and Solo and everybody else? Were the backstage segment that they did with Paul Heyman, Sami Zayn, and them getting introduced, that allowed them to show their personality and who they are for the audience. But, in a way, yes, they haven't been introduced like you would introduce them if you were meant to follow them, but they're part of a group. So I think that's where a difference is.
Do you think they should do more to talk about the dynamic? I mean, they've touched on it, there's sort of a uncle-like relationship with Haku, and Peter Maivia and all that. And so there's some blood connections, but there's also just some non-blood family connections with them, and that there's a history there. They throw they threw in the tribute to Roman's dad, the NOI family flowchart up on the screen. Would it help to do more to talk about the legit or somewhat embellished dynamic with Roman and Tama Tonga and all that and Haku's kids? Is that something that would benefit, or is it fine the way it is? They just sort of vaguely talk about them all having an interwoven history and they're close and from the same island, and that's enough.
I think that's what they're going for. Some people are going to want more. Some people are fine with other things. I follow, on TV shows and stuff like that. The commentary is like, oh, they didn't completely explain this. There's some stuff that you're like, okay, well, we need this explained. Some other things that you don't need explained. The Star Wars Solo movie explains how Solo got his last name. If you're a Star Wars fan, why do you really need to know how Solo got his last name? Most people get it from their parents. that didn't need explaining. So that's going too far. But at the same time, so I can understand. I personally think I'm fine because I'm looking at them as what their type, what their archetype is, and what they're meant to do. They come from the Tongan family. That's close enough because they're Islanders, and it's similar enough where and they were all in the wrestling business, so you could imagine there's so they and Cody Rhodes, Graves has talked about their that there's a connection there, but the fact that they're not bloodline also makes us feel, oh well, before it was a family thing, now it's more like these guys are being brought in as mercenaries, so that's more the So that's why it works for me. But yeah, I mean, you could explain more without, and I think you're going to get more because I mean, again, it feels like we're just in Act 1 of the storyline. Maybe going into Act 2 with the murder of Paul Heyman today, and the story's going to get rolling, and I'm expecting to get more behind the scenes, in in their dressing room talking and how they fit in the pecking order, maybe at some point someone's given a command that they don't like, that kind of thing. That'll develop over time.
Very good. Rude Dog, any closing comments from you?
Well, the last thing is, now that I'm living in New Jersey, it's not too far to get to New York City from where I live. So I thought about going to the show tonight, but I also was like, do I want to go to this or do I want to go to Forbidden Door on Sunday on Long Island? So I looked at the ticket prices, and the very cheapest seat in Madison Square Garden was in the very top, like, nosebleed section, and it was over $100.
Yeah. And
you can get a ticket for Forbidden Door on the lower level for under $40. So I'm going to Forbidden Door.
I mean, I get it if it's a close call and you can get 60% cheaper and a better seat. And probably twice as long of a show, for better or for worse.
For sure.
All right, Hendrik, always good talking to you. Thank you.
All right, have a good night, guys.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I love the Terry Funk T-shirt, by the way.
When I met Eddie Kingston, he grabbed me and just hugged me, and he's like, the GOAT, and he said a bunch of bunch of bad words, but I don't know. So,
well, sorry, finish your thought.
No, just like, so Eddie Kingston really appreciated the shirt, and I don't know. He seems like he's buds with me now just because I was wearing it. So
I have 2 framed photos. I did a lot of photography over the years, especially in the late 80s and 90s at live pro wrestling shows at ringside. And I have 2 photos, framed photos that I took on my wall in my office. One of them is Terry Funk cornering the referee Tommy. I'm trying to frame this up here. I'm not good at that. I love this photo. Yep, Tommy Young getting
Tommy Young
cornered by Terry Funk in the corner. So I see that photo every day at work. Yep, Terry was great. He chased my mom around the American Indian Center in Minneapolis once at an indie show that photos were promoted. He knew it was her, and he's like, because I told him my mom's here. She doesn't usually go to wrestling shows, and my mom was a fan of Terry Funk too. Not a fan of wrestling a ton, but she got a kick out of Terry Funk. So he's like, all right, and then he chased her and her friend up the bleachers. So yeah, fun stuff. All right, Hendrik, Rude Talk, thank you so much. We'll talk to you next time, I'm sure.
All right, have a great night.
Yep, take care. Cool. Okay, let's go to another video caller here. Actually, this will probably be just audio. Jason, you are coming up. Sean, hold tight. Jason, you are on. Welcome. What's in your mind about SmackDown tonight?
Yeah, thanks, Wade and Javier. It's Jason from Australia.
You didn't put that in your nameplate, your little signature. That's great. Good to hear from you. So cool to have you.
I figured this all out, so I thought I'd come on and just share some thoughts, man. Wade, if you think you're behind technology or whatever behind it, I'm way behind, mate. So I'm just catching up. Because I'm from Australia, and of course we're behind America, and you guys are way in front of us and everything, But I wanted to say, no, I know. That's a slight dig at my country, but I actually don't mean it.
Yes.
I love SmackDown tonight. First of all, I'm an Indiana Pacers fan. I grew up a big Reggie Miller fan. I jumped on the bandwagon. And nothing's sweeter than me than seeing a pacer in MSG getting booed. I mean, that just brings back so many childhood memories. What Miller did to the Knicks and seeing Halliburton, and I'm a big fan of Brunson, so I got a real big kick out of that today watching that.
They had a hell of a season. Yeah, that was a really fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
run for them too.
Oh, exactly. I mean, 4-0 to the Celtics for 3 of the games, almost come down to the final possession, So for what we've been able to achieve and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what happened for poor Timberwolves, mate. He's got demolished. Sorry, don't mean to bring that up, Wade. Basketball season's over. Let's forget about it.
We're one game away from being number one in the Western Conference. They're young, up and coming team at potentially great and sneaky draft. Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to go to the finals instead of Dallas and not get blown out like we did in that last game. But I will take that season over every other season the Wolves had, with one other one being a tie. I think it was 2003. But yeah, we don't get a lot of runs like that. So that was exciting for us. But, talk to me in 4 years when we, make the playoffs and go deep every year, but get knocked out before the finals. Then I'll be bitter and spoiled. But Timberwolves fans are not spoiled yet.
And if the Pacers can learn to play defense, then we might be able to go one step better as well, because we've got a hell of an offensive team. But we could talk about this all day. But anyway, in relation to, I thought this was a great SmackDown. I think they have been building Paul Heyman getting beat up by Solo for a while. And I've really enjoyed the character of Solo and the transition that he's made from being the enforcer to being, and let's be honest, the heat on him is being an imposter. He's an imposter tribal chief, if you want. He's an imposter, and he doesn't have to measure up to Roman in that sense. He has the credibility behind him as far as being part of the family, and we've seen what he can do in the ring and some key victories he's had. The heat is on him being an imposter. And it's like he's been looking for an excuse to beat up Paul Heyman. And tonight he got that. So it's almost like, I feel like he's been baiting him, so it gives him an excuse to beat him up. But I love the presentation of it. What I really enjoyed tonight is when I was doing the acknowledgement ceremony, you had Jacob Fatu sort of circling in the background, moving back and forth as if he's like a wolf. So living up to the nickname he's given him. And I don't know too much about Jacob Fatu. I've seen clips of him MLW on social media and whatnot, but whatever it is, he has it. The look, the word aura, he has it. So I like the dynamic, and I like the dynamic at play between him and Solo, because now we can see moving forward, it's going to be up to Solo to try and contain him like Roman had to try and contain Solo. But Jacob Fatu's on a different level to Solo. So I really like the dynamic at play here.
Yeah.
Now, I was listening to what you and Javier, what we're talking about as far as establishing more of Tonga Loa and Tama Tonga. Mm-hmm. And I see what you're saying. It's almost like back in the 90s, the late 90s, where people thought, well, we could just put an NWO shirt on someone and automatically they become a star.
Right.
Now it's almost like, well, you can be part of this Anawahi family and you're automatically a star. For sake of just tying up loose ends, I would like to see a little bit more and hear a little bit more about the background of Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. Just get into a little bit more, because much like you guys have said, I feel like the hyperbole, especially Paul Heyman, who's going out of his way to put this group over so much, I feel like the talk, it's not backing up with the action. It has with Jacob Fatu, but we need to see more from Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa as far as what they can do in the ring from a pure damage point of view, because all the talk about him hasn't measured up. And all the times that they fought against Orton and Owens, Orton and Owens always seem to get the better of them. So I like to see them established a bit more. But overall, just in relation to that segment, I mean, when Roman Reigns comes back, he's going to blow off the roof, whatever joint he's in. So they have set this up beautifully. And obviously, the long-term plan is to get to Bloodline versus Bloodline 2.0 at War Games. And now we're talking, because that's just going to be tremendous. So I think the long-term story they've told and the way they position is 2.0, there's enough uniqueness to them. There's different dynamic at play, and there's different characters. I think they've set it up beautifully.
Jason, do you think Heyman and Reigns as a babyface act is long-term? Like that, I'm not saying it's the final stanza of Heyman's career, because I think Roman will retire as an active wrestler before Heyman is done. Heyman has told people, I'm just getting started. Like, he's not counting down the days to stop traveling and retire and go do whatever he wants to do with all the money he's made in the last few years, especially. But do you like Paul Heyman in a babyface role with Reigns right away? Probably, obviously, yes. But push back if not. But then beyond that, does Heyman ultimately, do you think in his mind he already has an idea of how he'll turn on Reigns or how he'll go heel again?
No, I think from the moment I saw the Hall of Fame ceremony and even the way Cody was talking to him, I knew that the long-term plan, or the medium to sort of long-term plan, if you like, was to turn Paul Heyman babyface. I mean, you could see this happening. And he's gotten to that point, Wade, where people don't want to boo him. They don't want to boo Paul Heyman. You can't have that Hall of Fame induction and him saying, I'm a Paul Levesque guy and all of that, and not go through with a babyface turn. Mm-hmm. So I could see this happening. And I think the long-term goal is for Heyman to be paired with Roman. I don't see any reason as to why Heyman will turn on Roman. But then again, how long does Roman want to wrestle for? I can see Heyman, though, teaming up with Cody Rhodes down the line. I mean, I can't see that happening. I think they've told enough of a story there. But I'm intrigued because, and as Triple H said at the press conference after WrestleMania, wait till we get to the news story of Roman Reigns. You haven't seen nothing yet. So this babyface turn, obviously we're heading towards Roman and Rock at WrestleMania 41. And it's Rock the one in the background who is pulling the strings of the new Bloodline 2.0, more than likely. So that's going to be a big reveal. So I think they're telling a very good long-term story here, but I'm fully invested in seeing Paul Heyman in a full-on babyface role with no like, oh, do we cheer him, do we not? No. He's a babyface now. Roman's going to come back. And the other thing you've got going now is the dynamic between Roman and Cody, because from a real life point of view, Roman losing his father, Joe losing his father. We've talked about Cody with his father. Now that can bring that in and almost form like a bond in that sense. So we could see like a super team coming together of Roman teaming up with Cody.
Yeah. I mean, they might need the numbers. Javier, jump in on this conversation. Anything that's crossed your mind, or anything you want to throw to Jason on?
There was a lot there. Let me break it down.
Yeah. Take your time.
Yeah.
By the way, thanks to Bobby Lopez on Facebook for liking us on Facebook. I just saw that we can give a shout out to people who like us on Facebook while you're gathering your thoughts, Javier.
Yeah. Jason just makes it so hard because he has so many good points. My mind is saying like a million ways at one time. Everything he says, like 300 things. Let me just
800. Javier, don't be nervous. We just passed 800 live viewers. They're all waiting for you. There's come on, Javier, gather your thoughts.
And now you're teasing me.
I'll be.
I mean, I'm not worried about what like the next step between Heyman and Reigns is, because that's going to be like the third season stuff. I think that after this whole part ends, I think it's most likely he'll pair with someone who's younger, who they want to take to the next level. Austin Theory Wade. I mean, there you go. So no, I mean, I'm only half kidding, but someone along those lines. Yeah. The next Paul Heyman guy, because I think that would be like at that point the best way to use them. But that's going to be so far down the line. Yeah, when you mentioned the Cody Rhodes. Roman Reigns super team. That's all, ultimately where we're going to head off with, most likely when The Rock comes into play, because that's going to happen. And where the pieces are going to go, and where Roman Reigns is going to fit, and all that stuff is going to be, down the road. Are we going to see Cody versus Rock first, or are we going to see Roman Reigns versus Rock first? I think it's more of a happy accident that's working this way, but the fact that Rock started calling himself the final boss, and now he's like the secret final boss is what it looks like, assuming everything, things can always go awry and off the rails, but I'm going off what it looks like that they're setting up, because it seems that that's who Solo's taking his marching orders for. That's one of the things I've been saying as far as Solo's concerned in his role of things is when Reigns was there. You could tell, and this was like something. So that this is something that was coming, because you could tell that Solo was sitting in the back, and he was seeing what Reigns would do, and he was taking notes, so that when Reigns was out of the way, he's copying the stuff that Reigns is doing. but it's not working out for him because he doesn't understand the why Reigns does it. So, like you said, he's an imposter, so he doesn't understand the why. He's just doing it like, hey, this worked out for Reigns. Why didn't it work out for me? And then when that happens, like he was expecting Heyman tonight to bend the knee, he didn't. And then that drove him into fury because he expected, hey, this worked for Reigns. Why didn't it work for me? And that infuriates him because it's the character he's playing. So and he's doing a good job playing that character. Yes, he could have elevate. He could be elevated a little bit, but he could have But it's been an enjoyable experience. And again, this is still early. We got more stuff. And you said that Heyman said wait until we see what we got coming up for Reigns. Is that what you said, Wade?
Ask me that again.
That Heyman said, wait until we see what we got coming up for Reigns. If
No, I don't remember saying that.
Okay.
No, that was me, Javier. I said in the press conference, Triple H said that we've got a whole new. Wait till you see the story that we've got coming up for Roman coming up. He was saying, wait till you see that. So obviously they always had this in mind, this massive babyface run that he's going to go on.
Yeah, so if they have that stuff planned out, and how all the other parts are going to, it's the fact that they have the idea and you're working towards that, and yeah, you're going to have run into speed bumps because it's real life and people get injured or people miss stuff. I think that ends up being you're in a situation where if you can see where things are going, you have more of a reason to stick around, and because you want to see what the next chapter is. You almost want to binge what's going on because you want to know what's coming up next.
Yeah, this is not like starting The Sopranos, 20 years after it first aired, and you can just binge it and get to the end in within a handful of weeks. I think there's a good chance. I alluded to it earlier briefly, but a heel Heyman turns on Roman with Cody, down the line. Again, I think that's a year and a half, 2 years away. Because I think Cody has a heel run in him. Now, they don't want to turn him if things are going great. For Cody, if things are going great as a babyface, but a heel Cody with Heyman by his side might predate Heyman Austin Theory alliance, and I've said that twice now, so Todd can mock me and us for it next week. But Cody has an incredible heel potential to be a massive heel in WWE down the line. Whether he sees that yet or not, it's there, and I think Heyman is astute enough to see that possibility. But that would be Heyman harboring resentment of Roman for icing him, ghosting him during this time, if that is the way the story plays out. That might be something Heyman never forgets and then eventually brings up. There's so many great things about this. There's so many directions they can go, and my hunch is they have a pretty good idea of where they're going, but they want to throw some red herrings and plant some seeds and leave us guessing. But they want it to make sense when they eventually do that stuff. Jason, back to you.
One other thing, in the opening segment, once Cody, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton cleared the ring, when Cody said, I shouldn't be involved with this type of thing tonight. I'm in Madison Square Garden and I should be defending the title. Randy Orton shot him a look. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if that was on purpose or whatnot, but they're clearly teasing a Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton type of title match down the line. And I'm really looking forward to that, playing into the legacy background. That's a tough one. Do you go with a babyface type of matchup there? Do you turn Orton heel, or is Orton just at that stage where he can't turn him heel because he is just so beloved by the fans? Or does he just turn heel briefly, like kind of Shawn Michaels did against Hulk Hogan? Then you just kind of move on back to him as a babyface. But they have been teasing these little looks that Orton has been giving Cody. So somewhere down the line, we're going to get to that matchup.
What do you think, Javier?
Yeah, Jason read my notes because I had that. I caught that look too when he said that. I'm going to go both ways on this to talk it through myself. A heel turn, I think people are still going to want to back Orton because he's
dangerous.
It's at that legend.
Dangerous for Cody.
Yeah. I my gut when Jason was talking, my gut feeling is keep them both babyface, and a friendly, like, okay, we're gonna do this together, and then one of those they have a great match, or a 3.5 match because it's Cody and Randy, and then you have them hey, it was a good match, shake hands after that, and put each other over and try to, if you're going to head into that direction. Because I think if you do turn Orton heel, you're going to have the section of the, let's say out of nowhere he hits the RKO out of nowhere on Cody after whatever's going on here. Maybe that's why they lose this feud with the Bloodline, because Randy turns on Cody leading into SummerSlam for that match. But at that point, I think that some people are going to be like, I think you're going to have a part of the audience that's going to be, yay, Orton, RKO out of nowhere, and that might, I think that's going to happen no matter what. The question is whether that snowballs into turning against Cody. That would be my concern with that. So I don't know. When I heard the idea of Cody versus Orton, I'm like, those are tricky waters to navigate. If you want to maintain Cody by, as just your number one, Hogan, Austin level babyface.
Brock Benningfield in the chat says Orton can be dastardly enough to turn the crowd against him. Azan says Randy's so beloved as a WWE legend at this point. Ken Arnold says, I think everyone visualized an RKO during that segment, but I know it'll be a little while longer.
And he also referred to him as the Legend Killer, which was the other thing that piqued my my attention in that moment, because that was when he was his most vile, I think.
Yeah, Forrest Malone said Randy heard himself being called the Legend Killer and smelled blood. And Randy the Viper is coming out, says Azan. So yeah, a lot of moving parts in the shorter term and in a long story arc too. Jason, back to you.
In relation to the Money in the Bank, they've been heavy on talking about that from the women's point of view. It's been 100% cash-in rate. So I can see Chelsea winning the briefcase and then thinking she's going to win it, saying it's almost a done deal because it's 100%, and then she becomes the first person to actually not cash in and be unsuccessful. So if they're going to give it to someone like, if they're going to give it to a, quote unquote mid-card act, I could see Chelsea winning it, but then ultimately losing. Although if they weren't going to go down that path, obviously Tiffany Stratton is the top pick for this. In relation to the men, see, that's a tricky one, because if you give it to Jay, you don't want Jay to fail in on his cash in. Like, he's going to have to win it. Like, he's going to have to be successful in his cash in, right? Because he's had a lot of opportunities at world titles and he's consistently been screwed, whether it's his brother, whether it's against Gunther, he had the match won. And, Gunther even admitted in a promo that he was lucky against Jay. So if they do give the Money in the Bank to Jay, I hope he does. I hope they have I know they do have a plan, but I hope he's successful in his cash in. And, it'd be interesting to see Jay as a world champion. Obviously, he's not going to do it against Cody, but you've got to look at what they're going to do at SummerSlam. I mean, what's happening with Gunther and whatnot. So that's an intriguing one there, but I think he's definitely the favorite.
Javier, what do you think?
On the men's side, it's just I keep seeing that poster of Jeet in the Bank, and it seems like that's just something they want to go with Jey Uso. I was concerned a bit with LA Knight, because LA Knight really wants to go after the U.S. title. And I'm like, man, is this one of those cases where he wins it and then goes after the U.S. title because he wants to get at Logan Paul? But with him getting a pin tonight on him, I think that solves that problem. And I don't think Drew's going to win, because Drew's going to get screwed by Punk either in the qualifier match or at Money in the Bank, one of the two. So I don't think Drew ends up winning. But yeah, I mean, Jey Uso for me is the most likely of that. I was thinking Chad Gable as not a serious storyline in terms of because they did bring up a couple times the Otis having won the Money in the Bank and then completely screwed that up. So I was thinking maybe the feud between him and Otis ends up over the briefcase and a shift in that you would work something out there. But now that they brought in the Wyatt Six and they're involved, he's going to be involved in his own thing. So I don't think it's going to be that. Don't like Andrade for that. Don't think Carmelo is going to be by process of elimination. Jey Uso is the only one that makes sense. He doesn't have. He's got a year to cash it in. So let's see what happens with the Gunther, Seth Rollins, Damian Priest stuff. I think they just end up giving it to him, and he holds it for a quite period of time. Maybe that might come into play with the bloodline stuff, because I'm not sure. Are you stuck on your brand to cash in, or do you cash in on either brand? So
I think either brand.
Yeah.
I think what I believe is that you can cash in on a champion of your choice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's almost like one step more prestigious than winning the King of the Ring, because then you have to stick to your brand. But with the Money in the Bank, it is a champion of your choice, which is why LA Knight said, if I'm going to win it, I'm going to cash in on Logan Paul, because that's the championship of his choice. It's the champion of your choice.
Yeah.
And then remember on Raw, Finn Balor said, he joked he was going to cash in on Damian. No, mate, I'm going to cash in on Cody.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I could see this be also a way to get Jey Uso involved in the bloodline stuff that's going over.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's what I've been thinking. Yeah. If they want to go that way, that's why I say there's a whole array. There's just so many ways this can branch out. And they'll choose one path, but I think we can look at multiple viable and compelling paths. Jason, anything else for us?
That's it. I'll leave it at that. Wade, Javier, good talking to you on this new format. Congratulations, Wade. I think you're doing a great job, and viewers are going to keep ticking over. Hopefully the subscribers to VIP, which of course is more than worth your money. And mate, just keep going. You're doing a great job.
Jason, thank you. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. Jason, longtime caller, sometimes co-host on the show with us, and it is awesome that he has made his YouTube debut. By the way, Sunday night after we are done with covering Forbidden Door at PWTorch.com, you can join Greg Parks live on Wrestling Night in America, which will be right here on YouTube on the PW Torch channel. So if you want to join Greg live, he'll go live shortly after the pay-per-view ends. It'll be very late. I believe Brandon LeClaire will be joining him, and they will welcome your chat comments, your emails, and everything else in terms of participation. I'm looking for their email here. Here it is. So yeah, wrestling. It's a different email if you want to participate by email. WNIA livecast@gmail.com, as in Wrestling Night in America livecast. So check that out. Otherwise, subscribe to the Daily Cast so you can listen to the show afterwards. It'll be available free for everybody in the AM hours Monday. So search PW Torch in your podcast app, and you'll get the whole lineup of all the available free PW Torch Daily Cast shows. Which, by the way, we're talking about Paul Heyman. You can jump in and see the or listen to the 90s Pastcast. And it is a fun walk through wrestling history 30 years ago to the week, what was in the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter. And Patrick and Alex run through that newsletter. They read it thoroughly, pull out all the interesting comments and editorial comments and backstage news tidbits and star ratings and all that, and react to what was going on 30 years ago this week. There's a great back catalog of those. All those are available easily if you're a VIP member, but you can get a bunch of them on our free feed too. So all our free shows are available when you go VIP, but we take out the pre-recorded in-house and third-party digital ads when we do that. So support us, get a lot in return. But again, subscribing for free is a good first step. The gateway drug to going VIP is subscribing to all of our shows. And don't forget that includes the preview of AEW Forbidden Door. Eric Kroll and I recorded it earlier today, plus a Tony Khan Media Q&A in its entirety is available, but it is not on YouTube. So search search Wade Keller in your podcast app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much every other iOS or Android app, or you can stream it right from PWTorch.com. Let's shift to bringing into the show Sean from Tennessee. Sean, thank you for your patience. Sean from Murfreesboro, welcome. Good to see you. Smiling. You're excited to be on the show. We're excited to have you. What do you have to add? When we save you to the end, it can be slim pickings. You got to really, really bring it.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Well, first, okay. So I'm on with you and Javier. I mean, Javier from Miami. I mean, royalty, right? And then I have to follow Rude Dog, and then I have to follow Jason from Australia. Come on. Like, really? That's not fair. That's just not fair.
And Darrell is in the chat. Darrell's in the chat. People want Kyle to show up. People are wondering where Kyle from Baltimore went. Kyle, if you're listening, join us. Yeah.
So
but a lot of the legends are here tonight.
We're bringing it. We're trying to bring it. This is a good show, and we had a lot to talk about, and I have a lot to chew on. And Wade, you've probably seen me like chewing, like, oh, I can't wait to get on here and talk about this. So I wanted to talk about Randy and Cody because you guys were bringing that up, and I have a lot of thoughts on that. So I want everything they've been teasing, like you were talking about. I want Randy and Cody to have a long feud because you have that awesome backstory with Legacy already. Cody is super over. I understand Randy's over. He's a legend. We all understand that, and I'm not diminishing that. He can turn on Cody and it'll be fine. The fans are so behind Cody right now, it will be okay. It might be hard initially, but once Cody fires up with some really good promos and they have the way they're going to tell that story, they're going to get so invested in it. I think it'll be totally okay. But I see where the nervousness is because I think I asked you 2 weeks ago about it. Like, is that why they're maybe not wanting to do that because of Randy being so over? But they're both over, and Randy's a great heel. He's better as a heel. It's going to be fine. Eventually he'll turn back, and that'll be the last turn, and he'll be almost done by then maybe, and we'll see where they go. But this story could be so compelling. We already have so many good stories, and this is just going to add to it for me. They have to do it. There's so much backstory there. It just makes sense. You have to go that route. And they're teasing it so well. So
there is a lot of backstory. Javier, do they have to go with it?
I think it would make sense. That's the thing. I'm not privy to that backstory because I wasn't really following it closely. I think that was around the time I stopped watching. So, that was kind of. So, I knew it happened. I knew there was a thing there. I knew they had there was a because the other one, because the other one was
Ted DiBiase Jr.
Yeah. So that was around the time I already started losing interest in wrestling, particularly WWE. So, but yeah, if they never really tied that up, it would make sense that they have a longer term feud. But again, it's that question of, Orton has gone back and forth a few times. That's the other thing. I'm not, cool with, not cool, but not super, excited about.
It's been a little while though. It hasn't been that long. It's been a little while.
Yeah, but it's kind of been often enough that it's because in a lot of cases he comes back as a babyface when he's come back from injury or whatever. He comes back as a babyface and immediately pretty much soon after turns heel. So that's kind of that's the other thing that I'm not too particularly enamored with is seeing a heel Randy Orton again, but. It might work in terms of how because of their backstory. So and
it might not be full out. It might not be all out heel. It could be pick 'em, which is dangerous, but it could be Randy leaning heel without doing anything that would make you feel bad cheering him after the Cody feud is over, and he could even frame it afterwards. And I could see them coming up with something, which is Randy thought Cody was going a little soft, and he wanted to be champion, and he thought a way to get the belt would be to go after Cody in kind of a personal way. But when it's all over with, he could say, the consolation prize is if I don't beat Cody, I want Cody to be a better champion. And I think beating me still at my best is a notch on Cody's belt that will help Cody's legacy. And to bring out the killer instinct in him, I needed to go after him the way that I did. And I think Cody could, again, not crossing a line. This isn't raiding Cody's house and standing over his baby's crib. But if Randy does a couple things, here and there to kind of lean heel, in the end, Cody could go, hey, you know what? That feud with you made me better. And actually, thank you for it. Although, my neck will be angry about those RKOs, in 15 years. Whatever. I'm just saying there's creative ways they can do it and not have it be this binary thing where all of a sudden we have to believe Orton is suddenly this bad dude again.
He's always been a bad dude, though. Come on, Wade.
Yeah, that's true. Evil and unworthy of your cheers.
Right. No, I'm excited because I just think, we've been saying Cody needs a big challenger, and I just think that's a big challenger. We call it, and that's what it would be. It'd be, you could draw it out for a while too. It wouldn't have to be just a one-off feud, which he's had here lately. Is just one-offs where he's good, and he's going to beat. I think you would still know he would beat Randy, but at least it's like compelling. Like well, Randy's a 14-time champion. What if they make him a 15-time champion? I mean, they wouldn't, but it's still like you could still invest yourself in the story where it'd be a lot of fun. And I just think it would be good. And then going back to, I want to talk about the Money in the Bank matches just a little bit because I know you guys were already talking about it, but I would really like Jay just, oh man. And again, I'm a Jay fan. I know the bloodline stuff's going to be great when he eventually gets back into the bloodline with him and Jimmy, but this, he's over. I still love him, but the Yeet stuff, just the Yeet in the Bank, I don't want that. I don't want them to lean into that. Just get away from that. Like he could have do good stuff in the match and it'd be fun. But I really would love to see Carmelo win it because they've defined him down so badly already. I think he needs something. At least have a really good match. At least give him some really fun spots in it. Because if he just gets thrown around like a little puppy doll and then he just loses, I don't know where there's anywhere he can go other than just a mid card, whatever he's going to do. But I hope I would love to see him win. I honestly really would.
Javier, what have you thought of Carmelo?
His first appearance when he with his interaction with I want to say Brock Lesnar, and it's not Brock. Bobby Lashley. His first interaction with Bobby Lashley, I thought that was really good. He because Lashley tried to give him advice and he was cocky, and I like that, the attitude, and he's cocky. But since then, realistic cocky and and in a way where it's not like really deserved because he hasn't proven anything. They went from realistic cocky to like almost cartoonish cocky for me at this point. Where he's over the top. In his in what he's saying and stuff like that when he hasn't really proven anything. So, but again, not in a natural way. More like it's cartoonish is what it is, and in his interactions. So yeah, it feels it's weird. It's kind of like with the Austin Theory thing when his mannerisms are like over the top and cartoonish too, which is what ends up holding him back. I'd like to see that change, and I think he really should study tape on that first Lashley interaction because that's, I think, where the sweet spot is.
Cool. Sean, what else?
Yeah. And wait, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, but I'm with you on Austin Theory. There's a lot of potential there. I'm sorry. I'm with you on that. I don't see why everybody hates Austin Theory. I mean, the guy's really talented. I mean, yeah, have they booked him the greatest way? And has he done some little things here or there that aren't the best? Yeah, I mean, I could say that, but there's still a really good potential with him. He could be a really good heel for a while, or I still think there's a lot of potential as a face if they're going that route right now. I think he could do really well. I think the fans could get behind him. So I'm not down on him as other people are. I won't name names, but there's people that are down on him, and we know all about it. The one thing I'll say, too, going back to that opening segment, which was really fun, I enjoyed everything mostly about it, but we need to stop beating up security guys. Like, I know the fans are into it.
You're just kissing up to me now.
No, I'm serious. I've been with you for the moment. I've always been with you on that. It's stupid. It's just like, come on. Like, they're doing, like I said, they're doing their job. Just stop attacking them. And if Face is attacking them, to me, is even worse. It's like, you're good guys, and you're just attacking security for no freaking reason other than that you're mad that you're not getting at the guys for whatever. It's just, stop doing that. So
I like that Graves, I think, might have been Bear, but I think it was Graves who said there's gonna be fines for this, but they don't care. So they acknowledge that it's not like something Nick Aldis is okay with.
Right.
You can't do suspensions for beating up security guys. I mean, they should. I mean, it would make sense if they're trying to, make wrestling seem as real as possible to show. Because obviously, if an NBA player or UFC fighter beat up a referee, they'd be suspended. So as much as, Paul Levesque likes to say, we're making TV shows or movies about sports. In sports, you beat up security guards unprovoked, other than someone coming in the ring and telling you at the orders of their boss who hired them to stop doing something that isn't on the run sheet for the show. I mean, they should be being suspended, but it becomes a bit of a crutch and a cliche. It's like, hey, we can do a bunch of moves to a bunch of people. There used to be back in the day, jobbers used to run in the ring to make the save first. Like it was like their locker room was always closer to the entrance tunnel. So you'd have a bunch of prelim guys run out and they'd get beat up and take a bunch of bumps. And then eventually the top stars would come out to make the save. And now security guys are sort of a fill-in for that little trope. Javier, how are you on security guards getting beat up. Too much of it, you don't care. It's great. It's fun. Get over it. Stop worrying about it.
No, I mean, I'm fine when it's a situation where babyface wants to get at the heel. There's security guard in the way, and you're pushing them away, or like there's a scrum, and you throw punches. That for me is fine. When you go out of your way to start hitting your finishers on them, particularly when you're Cody, you could make an excuse for KO and Orton. Because of the characters that they portrayed, is why I was more fine with Stone Cold doing it, because it's. I thought
it diminished the stunner when Stone Cold just did it to people and they just roll out of the ring and it wasn't a big deal. Like to me, in RKO, when a stunner should be a protected move, where if a civilian, if a regular ordinary person gets it, I mean that should kind of be a big story. I mean they're fine if they don't do it. It's not like on a 1 to 10 scale, it's a 2. It's a 2 or 3. It's like if that, it's not that big of a deal. But I do think they should consider the possibility that you're watering it down by just doing it indiscriminately and not acting like it's a big deal. A finisher that can knock out a top level athlete for a 3 count shouldn't be something that's done to a non-wrestler and treated like it's just a shove.
Well, I got to give props to that one, because I think it was the one that got hit by the Crossroads. He was still selling on the floor when the cops came in, when they were let out. And I was looking at that guy. I'm like, man, that guy has a lawsuit on his hands. In his pocket now. I'm like, good on him, because he was selling. He could have just not done anything. So hey, if this was an audition, I think he should get the job.
Yeah, cool. Sean, what else for us?
Yeah, so going back to the stuff we've been talking about with the bloodline, I thought Solo was really good in the sense of he was just still very few words. I mean, he had to talk a little bit, but still very few words. Jacob Fatu, acknowledge me. Tonga, acknowledge me. It was just like it was good, and Heyman, like I said, he's just so much fun. I just love. He's one of the best to ever do it, no matter what he's doing. I just can't wait to see what's going to happen. Like the layers of storytelling, it's just why it's better than AEW right now. It's just the storytelling is just fantastic, and AEW just doesn't have a lot of it right now, and it's not that great when there is, and that's unfortunate. But going back to Tiffany, I do think she's going to win the briefcase, because I just think it's better for her right now to win it, because I think she's over and I think it's going to help. What have you thought so far? I know we haven't talked about it a ton. I guess I'm okay with her talking with Nia a lot, because they're heels and it's fine. But I do want Tiffany to kind of be her own person and not like rely on Nia to help her win matches and certain things like that. The match was good. And I want to talk about Jay in a minute too, but with Tiffany, do you like that she's with Nia? Do you think she should stay with her? I think she should be on her own. But she could talk to Nia, but I just don't want them to really feel like they're really in cahoots together, because I just think Tiffany should be her own woman. She's over and she's really impressive. She's young and she's talented. Kind of just, I want her to do her own thing.
What do you think, Javier?
I think the idea is more to build a women's tag division. So you get more on screen and have them involved, because right now, grab a second to get my notes. You have Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. You got Candice and Indy, Belair and Jade, Stratton and Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, members of Damage Control. It seems like you're getting a lot more. You're being able to start creating levels there to make that championship a little bit more important. And I think it's to that way you can have your 2 different stories going on with the top champions, and the other talented women are doing other things. And I think they're just partnering up instead of like how AEW has like all these stables basically to accomplish the same thing. I think there's more like a bunch of partners that are like going to be working together, and then you have an excuse for them to go after the tag teams, and they're established at that point, instead of like what has been happening with the women's tag team titles for a lot, whereas like these these two women get together like out of nowhere, and then they start teaming, and then they win the title. I think this is to establish relationships that last a little bit longer, so then you can actually make those titles mean something if you're going to have them, and you have like I said, like what else would Bianca Belair be doing when you have, Rhea, granted this before they were injured, this year was, Rhea Ripley involved and stuff. Plus you also have you could also bring some women that might still need some development that need that need to, get more reps in, like Jade. It makes sense that you would team up with Jade so she doesn't have to take like an entire match and and have some backup there too. And some of the other women they're bringing up from NXT, because a lot of them are all the women they're bringing up. So I think it's fine for now, and I think ultimately I think ultimately they're setting up like a Stratton, Nia Jax versus Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill thing. I think that's kind of what it feels like they're heading towards.
I like that. I mean, it makes sense, and I think it's an odd couple team, which I like. I mean, I think the two playing off each other can be a lot of fun, and it adds. I mean, the women's tag division takes on a much more prestigious level if you have Jade and Bianca against Nia and Tiffany. I mean, Nia's gotten a big push this year, and a successful one, I would argue. Tiffany, a rising star, really dynamic and a big contrast in a lot of ways. They were really putting Tiffany over as like Wade Barrett called her like the greatest athlete to ever enter the WWE realm. I mean, that was a little much. I know she's a gymnast and she has taken to, he didn't say sports entertainment. He said the WWE realm or something like that, whatever the phrase was. But yeah, that was some heavy praise for her. They think highly of Tiffany for sure.
A couple things too. If they do that, which I'm with you, the women's tag division needs more, but I just don't feel like they're doing much with it. I mean, ultimately, I'd love them to do a lot with it, but I just don't feel like they have. Now, if you have Tiffany and Nia go up against Jade and Bianca, somebody has to lose, which I don't really like. I mean, because Tiffany and Nia would need to lose in that, in the sense of I want the slow build to Jade and Bianca. I don't want to rush that, somebody losing and then somebody turning on the other right away. I want to build a story to that. So I just hope they don't rush any of that too fast. But it's a good idea, because I mean, I think it'd be fun. It would build up the women's tag for sure. And then with Jade, just what did you think of the match tonight? With her, I thought for a triple threat, it's kind of always kind of a mess, and there's just a lot going on. But I'd say that kick she gave to Tiffany early in that match, man, that looks stiff, man. I thought she almost like really kicked. I was like, dang, like you nailed her. That looked good. I thought she did well. I think she's coming along really slowly, but good. I've liked what Jade's doing in the ring here lately.
You could say a triple threat is a crutch for her because she doesn't have to, constantly be doing the action, but it's also, there's more going on. I mean, there's more complicated spots when you have to worry about two opponents. You're doing something to one and then the other's interfering. And I mean, she still doesn't have a lot of experience, but she's not brand new. And I thought tonight was a good showing for her. I mean, I think she's coming along. I was watching the match just thinking, there's a level of preparing methodology in WWE for a match like this that is a higher level than what goes on in AEW. In part because AEW just doesn't have a lot of green people. They have people who are more established, and I think it's helping her. I thought it was a fun, roughly 10-minute three-way match where I think they hit their spots. And they didn't try to do too much, but it wasn't just rudimentary either. I thought it was a nice, good three-way TV. What'd you think, Javier?
Yeah, I had a fine match. Was pretty much all I had for this one.
But it was exciting. I mean, the crowd was into it. Like, and that's an important ingredient. You're gonna have a good match and the crowd's dead. It's less good. And you can have a match that the crowd is into that's not good. I thought this was both. I thought the crowd gave it a boost. Yeah,
and her winning, and and you also set up stuff for the following match too with the Jade involvement. I'm glad that it didn't directly involve, not directly involved, that it wasn't like one of those cases where what I know you love, Wade. Anything's fair, and someone gets taken out in the middle of the match and then gets pinned. They didn't do that. They just when the ref wasn't looking, someone got bumped. That's something that happens in wrestling. So so at least they it did this. I got to go through and remember the finishes for all these matches, but it didn't feel like it had that many. The way that the finishes have been lately annoying, where you have no contest finishes and matches not ending in that way. I'm fine with like cheating and stuff like that, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was a fine match, and yeah, it wasn't like on the low, because I think there were a couple of the women's matches on Raw that were really, really good. That's kind of why I wasn't so hot on it, because I was just comparing it to those. Probably unfairly.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair comparison. I mean, they're on national television. They're getting paid money. They should be good.
They're on the same tournament too. So
yeah, that's true. Sean, anything else for us?
So when they had the Andrade vignette, which I like that they're doing some of those talking about Money in the Bank, but I thought it was just funny when he said, "I'm not here to win. I'm here to destroy." And I'm like, okay, you're not dumb. Here to win. I didn't catch that. I mean, that's I was like, wow. And then Javier, did you catch that when on that vignette? Did you see that?
Well, he actually said, "I'm not just here to win. I'm here to destroy."
Oh, did he?
That's not bad.
Okay,
that's a key word, Sean. Yeah,
that is a key word.
I may have Mandela affected myself, so you know.
Okay.
Well,
so that'd be better.
Yeah.
so I need some fact checking on that one, but I'm pretty sure that's what he said.
Yeah,
I'll go back and watch it too. I can go back and watch it too and see. But I hope that's
one of you is in trouble.
That would, it's probably me. It's me for sure. And then with the LA Knight, the match was fine, and then just him and Logan. I'm just loving them playing off each other. I'm excited. He doesn't need to win Money in the Bank. He's gonna get the match with Logan at SummerSlam, and I think he's gonna win it from Logan there. And I'm excited, man, because LA Knight's just in the spot he needs to be in. He's doing really well with it. His matches have gotten better. I mean, it's just he's a fun promo. The fans are into him, and I think he's in a good spot. And Logan, I think, is just doing a great job as a heel. So I wanted to hear you talk about that a little more. And guys, go VIP. Javier, appreciate it. Wade, you guys are awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean. Always good talking to you. Javier, what do you think of Logan Paul and what they're doing with him? I still just think he has taken to this like a fish to water. I think Barrett said that about Tiffany. Something like that. But Logan coming out in like the old Patriot gear, Patriot Del Wilkes, red, white, and blue, out long trunks, and I don't know. I think he's got great instincts and tons of charisma. Great athlete. Took to this quick.
Yeah. I mean, he so far hasn't disappointed. And yeah, I'm looking for it. We had talked about him at length previously, and it just continues. It just continues the what he's doing, and it's pretty much the way that we mapped it out, where the interaction between the two of them, it's going to be fun. I can't wait until we get past this Money in the Bank part, which kind of feels like it is a sidetrack from the storyline. Like maybe you get an interference from Logan Paul, because Logan Paul has been known to show up on these pay-per-views. When he took out was it Randy Orton in or who knows? Was it Randy Orton? Who did he take out in the Elimination Chamber?
I don't remember.
Yeah, so he took out somebody in the Elimination Chamber, or it might have been Rollins, I forgot. But yeah, he's basically, he's been known to interfere in, I mean, granted, here we are talking about interference in a pay-per-view match, but tends to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the mailbag here. Oh, we're getting close to 1,000 people watching us live on all the platforms, so that's cool. Again, just a reminder, if you're watching us outside of YouTube and you want to join the chat, and get all the full benefits, just jump over to youtube.com/PWTorch and subscribe, and you can even set yourself to get notified when we're going live for our shows following Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown, and also pay-per-views such as after AEW Forbidden Door. Reminder, search Wade Keller, get that show that Eric and I did. I'm proud of that discussion. Get you gear, whether you're ordering the pay-per-view or not. A lot of good AEW talk in there as we ran through and evaluated the hype on all those feuds. And then, of course, the following weekend after the 4th of July, midweek, we'll be doing our Money in the Bank coverage. A lot of talk about that more than tonight. And that will include Greg Parks hosting after Money in the Bank with Brandon LeClaire. Right here live on YouTube. So we'll be live. They'll be live as I'm recording a VIP exclusive roundtable both this Sunday night and also after Money in the Bank next weekend with Todd Martin and Rich Fan. And that will be dropped on the PWTorch VIP podcast feed. So go VIP to hear everything we do after pay-per-views. But Greg Parks and Brandon will be looking for you guys to join them live in the chat and call up. Thank you, JC Scooby, who says, long live YouTube show, Wade. Thanks to Efren, by the way, who on Twitter mentioned that he is loving our show and our format. So that is cool too. Just a shout out to people giving us shout outs. Appreciate it. All right. Yeah. So Junaid emailed and said, in March, Cody is apologizing for swearing. In June, he's assaulting security and being escorted out by police. I've been a fan of Cody since he returned to WWE, and it's not like I'm still not a fan of his, but I actually really admired the polite, dignified Cody pre-WrestleMania, who who apologized for mild profanity when he lost control. I generally don't like straight-laced characters in wrestling for too long because I generally prefer characters with rough edges. But Cody, I thought, was so perfect in the role that he was in before WrestleMania 40. Cody's been beating up security guards for a while. I'm going maybe it was around that time, but it feels like it was he's done that a lot. Anyway, I don't need him to be like Stone Cold Steve Austin, getting arrested and acting against authority. Give that type of character to someone else like LA Knight or another top star who really fits that persona. For the record, I grew up on the Attitude Era, so I love that kind of character. It's just not for Cody. But I'm taking a wait-and-see approach with this. In the end, I'm sure Cody will be excellent in this role. So do you think what do you think of the different, more thuggish person Cody has turned into? And should he be in prison? Way to round out a question there, Javier. We went through, I mean, technically, the Wyatt Six should be in prison. Yeah, KO, Randy, and Cody should be in prison. I think what happened to Paul Heyman as a non-wrestler in a non-match enters the realm of, Heyman pressing charges or somebody. So, but yeah, I mean, let's stay focused on Janae's comment about Cody. What do you think about whether he should not just become another pro wrestler who does that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that was my theory going back to WrestleMania like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. That I think people really, because I was surprised that how long his babyface run, because I was expecting people to start turning on him like fairly soon, and I've been surprised. I'm like, well, I think people do want, something like wholesome, basically. That kind of character, because it's nice to have, variety, in your media, basically. But yeah, I mean, I'm not. I think it might be that he's hanging around with KO too much, and he's a bad influence. Because we've seen what he's done, and what Randy's done. Maybe that's what it is. I think they could have built more towards his. I understand that he got beat up pretty badly last week, but I think they could have built up more for him to go that far and start taking out referees and stuff. And I didn't like him hitting the crossroads and and it was a spot. It was a moment that they focused like, hey, I'm going to hit my crossroads on this hapless security guard. That was much too much for me. Like I said, you could get away with Randy Orton, you could get away with KO because that's kind of, they particularly KO is modern day Stone Cold. You see, he could get away with it to a certain extent, but yeah, I didn't like as much. I know you had criticized the chair shot on AJ Styles, because that was played as a joke because he wasn't going to do it, and then his mom, because AJ had gotten his mom's face earlier in the match, and his mom, he looked at his mom and she did not really play well. She didn't really play well with the spot, and her mom basically gave him permission. He goes, yeah, hit him.
Yeah.
So so that, I mean, granted, that's still, I know they played it for a joke, maybe you shouldn't sacrifice character for a gag like that. You can make that argument. Me personally, I was fine with that, but this one was more like, there's no poor guy, man. Just why do that to him again? Push him. If it's a scrum, a punch, fine, because you're just swinging. That's fine. But this was just like this was like premeditated murder almost.
Ken Arnold in the chat says, I'm fine with Cody striking that balance of being an unhinged babyface when necessary, but also being dignified and calm when warranted.
Yeah, I just don't think that at that point. I mean, I know it was a severe beard down, supposedly, fractured or hurt his ribs, but I think you could have built to that moment first. Maybe some scuffles first, and then it gets too far, and then at that point is where you completely snap. Because he's been getting beaten up by the Bloodline and other groups before, and didn't kill security guards then. So
Yeah. JC Scooby says, already over Cody as a face. He's too goody for me. So JC Scooby wants more of what Junaid wants less of. Sean from Murfreesboro chimed in and said, yeah, JC, I'm still with Cody all the way. I love what he's doing. Yeah. By the way, we're over 1,000 people watching us live now. We had a little surge here, so welcome everybody. And start at the beginning when you get a chance, because this will be available on YouTube and on our podcast feed if it's easier for you. Search Wade Keller, subscribe to the Red Logo Show, download the show in podcast format too. And there's a lot of other cool stuff on that feed that you don't get here on YouTube. Next question from Junaid. How to introduce Roman Reigns. Wow, what a closing segment. Paul Heyman was excellent, and his bloodshot eyes and overall demeanor was very convincing. The others were pretty good too. But where does this leave Roman? Since he's gone completely off the grid, how does he even become aware of Heyman's beatdown? Does the new bloodline visit Roman's home and savagely beat him down? Because after all, they are savages, right? Does Roman just randomly start posting on social media in 3 to 4 weeks that he heard about what happened and is back in time for SummerSlam to face Solo? Personally, I'd have him return in a few weeks and say he heard about what happened and is completely disgusted and upset about Solo's actions to his friend, and he needs to teach Solo about respect and family. But then he gets destroyed by the new bloodline, which leads to Jay and Jimmy by his side in a huge tag match at some point, possibly at Survivor Series. What is the best way to make the most of Roman's return? Keep up the great work. Thank you, Junaid. So, I mean, I'm curious what this story is on Roman being gone. And I think they ought to have a really good explanation of where he's been. And I think Junaid brings up a good point. What leads to him knowing about what's going on? Is it someone knocking on his door? Is it a family member that he stayed in touch with who let him know you need to check back in with your friend Paul? I know it's necessary to have him off the grid from Paul during this time, but if he is genuinely going to be a babyface and on Paul's side, which everything points to, they've got to have a good explanation for him letting all this happen. Now, up to this point, it hadn't crossed a line where Roman isn't like, well, I can take care of that later when it's convenient for me. Javier, what do you think?
I think you do. I think that the whole thing with the necklace was kind of to imply that they might have done something to him, because
Heyman's reaction suggests, could suggest that.
Yeah, it was kind of like he reacted with horror towards saying, like,
remember, Solo said last week Roman's not coming back.
Yeah.
And you combine it with that, yeah.
So I mean now. That's one thing. The other thing, like, because I think the easiest way is that he's on walkabout. That he's traveling the world with no cell phone, and trying to find himself and find a direction, see where things went wrong, and self-reflecting, that kind of thing. That would be
13 million text messages and DMs when he reconnected to Wi-Fi or 5G network. Yeah.
If you allow me to make a joke. Maybe he got pile driven, lost his memory, was living in a sanitarium for a while.
What's the 1970s ABC movie of the week?
No, Cactus Jack. As a reference to Cactus Jack.
Oh, okay. That's even better. Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of the first storylines that I ever followed. One of the first storylines I followed when I was a fan. Yeah. But yeah, that's something along those lines. I mean, I'd almost like to see, like, if it really were like he was, like, beaten up and, like, he's being held against his will in, like, some sort of compound, and they have, like, an entire, like, storyline with videos and stuff, showing how he gets out of that situation. But yeah, I mean, that has got to be their main focus, is, like, why does Roman Reigns not know, and why hasn't he, and I want to make sure, setting aside, real life tragedy, because obviously, Sika passed. So, setting that aside, obviously we know in the real world, but, like, storyline Reigns, where has he been? That needs to have an explanation.
All right, Javier, anything else in your notes you want to bring up from SmackDown tonight?
I got a kick out of Corbin saying I'm a gambling man during that scene. Call back to when he became Happy Corbin.
Yep.
Because he won.
What do you think of what they're doing with him, by the way? Post.
I actually missed last week's, so I think he was involved. So I never got back to watch that, but I pull for him because I've actually been a fan, and my brother really likes him. And I'm a fan, and I hope things work out well. At least do something in the mid card. I don't want him in the main event. That did not go over well last time. But I think he could be fun because he has, like, a good range of stuff that he can do. The one thing I did want to talk more about was the because we touched upon it, but the I kind of wish that they had done more to build up Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, where they would be like more like along the lines of the way that we saw him in NXT, because I think that would have, because I like the idea that they're the ones trying to babyface Austin Theory, that they're the ones trying to convince him, because Gargano was his mentor. Granted, they were heels at the time. Him being the one and say, hey, look, you're screwing up your career, and then him getting him in the right path. That's a good. I think that would make a babyface turn better if it's But the thing is, I don't think that they've done the kind of job that they really needed for Johnny Gargano for it to land. If this were NXT, back when that was going on, I'd say yes, perfect. But kind of wish that it would have been better. But I'm most looking for. That's one. I think this might be one of the stories I'm most looking forward to see how that all develops. The ultimate breakup. If they can get people to really want to see Austin Theory break away from the group, and then become a babyface and side with Gargano and Ciampa.
Yeah, they keep interrupting Gargano and Ciampa promos. It seems like, but yeah, it's for good reason to advance this. And Gargano going, he's not your friend. You've got to see through this. I thought Gargano trying to speak up on behalf of an old friend, even if they were heels, is good. When there was a segment earlier with the Street Profits and Pretty Deadly walked in. I thought that they agreed to wrestle later on the show. What did you interpret from that segment? I must have connected dots that weren't there.
That really, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. It kind of felt, that's kind of what it felt like, because they were angling for a fight with the Bloodline, and they said we'll save it for next week. And then Pretty Deadly came out, and they said, okay, we're going to change it, and I thought it was the setup for this week, not next week, right? I mean, they'll probably
that's what it seemed like, yeah.
That seemed kind of like they got really annoying and loud, both groups at that point, and it was like I was like,
it wasn't just me then, yeah.
No, I hated that. I mean, I was like, no, I mean, they got so loud. I don't know if it was just my stream, my speakers, or what was going on.
It was overmodulating.
I did. So it wasn't just me. I mean, that. I'm like, come on. And yeah, I mean, I hate what they're doing with the Street Profits. It looked like they were going in a good direction with the new Hurt Business kind of group, and
what are they doing with the Street Profits is the question.
Nothing really. They're just like maintaining their New Day 2.0 kind of stuff. Just I wish they were it is what it is right now. And yeah,
well, I will say, I checked Alex McDonald's report on SmackDown at PWTorch.com. And he said Montez Ford pitched a match between the two teams as Dawkins cheered behind him. He didn't. And then, it doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't say that the match was made. But over at ProWrestling.net, Jake Barnett interpreted it as setting up a match for later in the show. The match was made for later tonight, he wrote. So we aren't alone in thinking that. So I don't. Yeah, I mean, I doubt they ran out of time. That's not what WWE doesn't do. That they didn't really have an excuse for it. So, it was just weird. By the way, go ahead.
And it kind of makes no sense why, because it seemed like they really wanted to go to the Bloodline, and then you're going to switch over to Pretty Deadly. Like why? What's going on? I did not get that scene.
Yeah. By the way, BJF in the chat earlier said I had to speed watch SmackDown because I went to watch Liam Gallagher from the band Oasis this evening, so only got back at 2 a.m. Had to speed through the commercials to catch up for the post show. I am jealous. I saw Oasis multiple times in the 90s and the 2000s, and they are the soundtrack to my late 20s. And I would love to. Yeah, I'm probably a little more of I'm definitely more of a Noel Gallagher fan. I like his acoustic work, but Liam is great too. That was a fun time. So BGF, hope you had a good time, and I appreciate you joining us here too afterwards. And he said he said in the chat that he wasn't in a condition to necessarily call in or anything like that after a Liam Gallagher concert. I can believe that and understand it. Javier, anything else in your notes?
No, nothing of importance, I don't think.
So I'll just throw on some comments that we had early in the show. Great closing angle. The Fox censor stepping on Solo's heat. The censor was the biggest heel of the night. That was Andrew Town and Brock Benningfield with those comments. Ken Arnold said Fox really hurt SmackDown with the black screen and overdoing the muting. JB wanted to know if it was a weather thing or Fox intentionally going to black that often. I took the black as the blackout of the screen as unintentional, as a technical issue. I took the muting as obviously deliberate. The MSG crowd is chanting "FU," and so yeah, there are just some words that Fox wants to censor at that time of night. But I wish they could find a way to mute the crowd, but not the announcers. Obviously the announcers' microphones are going to pick it up a little bit, but I don't think enough to make. I mean, there should be AI that can block out noise. I mean, your iPhone can block out wind. And subway noise. They should have a technology where you can still hear the commentators even when they mute the crowd. So that is my my official request to WWE to figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, it should have been bad during the Logan Paul LA Knight one, because they were chanting "FU Pacers" throughout the entire match.
Yes. Yep.
So was that bad? Yeah.
Yeah. You had an experience, Javier. You had a different feed. By the way, people were excited to see you, Javier. I don't know if you saw these. Brock Benningfield said,
some of them, yeah.
So
thank you all. Everyone has nice stuff to say. I was reading some of them, but then I started getting distracted. I can't multitask.
You gotta live up to your reputation as an analyst. You can't get distracted by your fans.
I need to work on being able to multitask those things. Because then I read something interesting, my mind starts going somewhere, and it's like, oh, what do you think? I'm like, oh, what the hell were you talking about?
Multitasking is a myth. It's an on-off switch with us. You're either paying attention to one thing or the other. You can't do both. So Brock Benningfield says we get Javier, and BJF says yes, Javier, and he says we're going down to Miami talking to Javier. We got to get the theme songs back. Loaded here on YouTube. I haven't figured out how to do that. Brock also says Wade and Javier are top tier. What else? There was someone else. Oh, someone says we finally got to Justin Cobble says so cool to finally put a face to Javier after all these years. And I mentioned earlier the flagship. Stephanie Chase joined me on the flagship this week, and Ken Arnold said the flagship with Stephanie Chase was tremendous. So check that out if you haven't yet. Before we sign off here, again, another plug for the podcast. It's not on YouTube. Our Blue Logo show, the regular podcast feed, has 2 new shows this week. The Eric Kroll and I talked in depth for an hour and a half about AEW's Forbidden Door pay-per-view, previewed it, and also have the Tony Khan Media Q&A afterwards. And then earlier in the week, Stephanie Chase joined me on the flagship, well over 2 hours. So I think over 2.5 hours of AEW and WWE conversation on that. So subscribe, search Wade Keller on your podcast app, and download every day. We also have some cool flashbacks and on that feed, and some really good long form interviews that I think you'll enjoy, especially. Yeah, well, I mean, I shouldn't even say especially. There's just a lot of good content on that feed. So search Wade Keller and check it out. Javier, thank you. Always pleasure talking wrestling with you. Look forward to you and Kevin Duncan on a weekly basis, diving into WWE topics and other stuff.
Yep. Looking forward to that. And I did also want to say, thoughts and prayers with Sika's, with the Anoa'i family, because,
Yep.
So.
Absolutely. That was, I thought they did a really nice video feature on that. And, quite the night for Heyman to take a beating, real life, working conveniently for the story they tell on the air. But, I'm sure in real life, that's, I don't know details about Roman's relationship with his dad, but I'm sure it's a tough time, for just about anybody in that situation. So, thank you, Javier. And, we will talk to you soon. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll check out Greg Park's post show Sunday night, and go listen to the flagship and the AW preview on our Blue Logo show, and check out PWTorch.com. And we will end there. Great conversation, great callers, and great chat room, and